The arena was loud. Thousands of aliens sat in the high stands, shouting and cheering. The grand tournament of the Zelari Empire had begun. Warriors from many species had come to fight. Bright banners flew in the air. Drums beat like thunder. But today, something strange was about to happen. Something no one expected. A human stood quietly at the edge of the arena. His name was Eric. He wore simple armor, not as fancy or shiny as the others. His brown hair was messy, and his eyes kept looking around like he didn't belong. The truth was he didn't. Humans were new to the Galactic Alliance. They were still seen as weak, slow, and soft. But Eric wasn't here for fame or glory. He was here on a peace mission, sent by Earth as a symbol of friendship, high above the arena. On a royal platform sat the Emperor of the Zelari. Beside him stood his daughter, Princess Laeri. She was tall, with glowing purple skin, sharp golden eyes, and silver armor. Everyone said she was the strongest and most beautiful of her kind. Many warriors had tried to impress her. None had succeeded then. Without warning, Laeri stood and raised her hand. The crowd grew silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. She looked across the arena. Her voice loud and clear. "Today, I offer a prize no warrior has ever won. The champion of this grand tournament shall earn more than glory. He shall win my hand." Gasps echoed across the arena. "And you, human," she pointed at Eric. "If you win this battle, you win me." The silence was deep. Some aliens laughed. Others stared in shock. Eric froze. His heart raced. Did she just say that? Was she serious? Eric looked up at her. Lori's face showed no smile, no joke. She meant it. A Zelari warrior near him growled. "This is an insult. You're not worthy, human." But Eric didn't speak. He just nodded slowly. He had no choice now. If he refused, it would dishonor his people. Worse, it could break the peace between humans and the Zelari. After the announcement, Eric was taken to the waiting area. It was dark and quiet, with stone walls and glowing lights. He sat on a bench, holding his helmet in his hands. A voice broke. The silence. "You look lost." He turned to see a young engineer. Her name was Mela. She had short black hair and wore a tool belt around her waist. She smiled kindly. "You're the human, right?" She asked. "Yeah," Eric said, trying to smile back. "You really going to fight for the princess?" Eric shrugged. "Do I have a choice?" Malay laughed softly. "Not really. But if you survive the first match, come find me. I can help." "Why would you help me?" he asked. "Because," she said, leaning closer, "you're not like the others. And I don't want that general winning." Before Eric could ask more, a loud gong rang. It was time. He stepped into the bright sunlight of the arena floor. The crowd cheered again, some shouting insults, others just watching with curious eyes. Across from him stood his first opponent, a huge Zelari warrior named Groth. He had 4 arms, thick armor, and a giant axe. His skin was covered in scars. Groth grinned. "I will crush you fast, little human." Eric said nothing. He raised his hands. Ready, the match began. Groth charged like a wild beast. The ground shook. Under his feet, Eric jumped aside, rolling away. The axe slammed into the sand where he had just been. He didn't try to fight strength with strength. Instead, he used speed. He dodged, ducked, and moved around Groth. The Zelari got angry, swinging. Harder and faster, but always missing. The crowd grew louder. Some began to cheer for the human. Others just watched in surprise. Eric spotted a weak spot in Groth's armor right, at the back of the knee. He waited. Then, just as Groth raised his axe for a heavy strike, Eric rolled forward and slammed his boot into that weak spot. Groth roared, in pain, and fell to one knee. Eric didn't wait. He jumped on his back and pulled out a small shock rod from his belt. He jammed it into Groth's neck. The giant warrior collapsed. Twitching, the arena went silent. Then suddenly it exploded. With noise, cheers, shouts, whistles, Eric stood, breathing hard, covered in sweat and sand. From the royal platform, Laeri watched with narrowed eyes. She didn't cheer. She didn't smile. but she was watching closely now. The announcer's voice echoed. Across the arena, the winner Eric of Earth. Back in the waiting room, Eric dropped onto the bench again, exhausted. Mala appeared a moment later, holding a water flask. You did it, she said, impressed. But that was just the first fight. We'll try harder next time. Great, Eric groaned. Get some rest, Mela said. And when you're ready, I'll show you something useful. Earth tech won't be enough alone. Eric nodded. As she walked away, he looked down at his hands. They were shaking. He wasn't a hero, wasn't a warrior. But now he had a chance to win, a chance to protect something more than just peace. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to understand why a powerful alien princess had picked a simple human soldier. The night after Eric's first fight was quiet, but his mind was loud. He lay on the small bed in his chamber, staring at the stone ceiling. The cheers still echoed in his ears. He had won but barely. Groth had been huge, strong, and fast. And the next fighters would be even more dangerous. Early the next morning, Eric heard a soft knock on the door. When he opened it, Mela stood there, carrying a small metal box and a folded cloth. You awake, champion? She said with a small smile. Barely, Eric replied. My back hurts. Like even my bones are tired. You'll need to get used to it, she said, stepping inside. 'Cause you're not just fighting muscle. You're fighting pride, politics, and 100-year tradition. Eric raised an eyebrow. Is that your way of saying I'm in deep trouble? Exactly, she said, opening the box. Out. Inside were small gadgets, tools, and a few worn-down weapons. This is all I could find from the old tech locker. It's nothing fancy, but I modified a few things. She handed him a small disc. This is a pulse mine. Press it to armor and it sends a strong shock. It won't kill, but it might stun. Then, she gave him a pair of gloves. These are grip lock. They'll help you hold weapons or climb if needed. I reinforced the fingers. Eric took them, thankful. You're risking a lot helping me, aren't you? Mela shrugged. Maybe. But you're different. You don't fight like the others. And she paused. I think the princess meant what she said. Eric looked at her. You think she really meant it? That I could win her? Mela nodded slowly. Layari isn't like most royals. She hates being forced to follow rules. She respects those who break them if they survive. Before Eric could reply, the arena horn blew 3. Times matched 2, Mela said. You better live, or I'll have to return those gadgets. Eric walked into the arena again. The crowd was bigger this time. More noise, more eyes, more pressure. The sand under his boots felt hot. The sun was bright. Banners waved in the wind. The announcer's voice echoed. Second match, Rick of Earth versus Jarnak the Shade. A shadow stepped into the arena. His opponent was tall, thin, and wore black armor that shimmered strangely. His helmet had no eye holes. He looked like a ghost. Jarnak said nothing. He just moved into position. Suddenly he vanished. Eric blinked. Where did he go? He spun around, heart racing. He knew this wasn't going to be fair. Jarnak was using stealth tech. Old reports said the Shade Clan trained in silence and speed, not strength. A sharp pain hit his shoulder. He fell to one knee. Something had struck him. He rolled away just in time to avoid another invisible hit. The crowd watched in confusion. Even they didn't know where Jarnak was. Eric pulled out the pulse mine. He closed his eyes, trying to hear. The air shifted behind him. He turned and tossed the disc. It stuck to something in the air and exploded with a bright flash. Jarnak appeared for a second, stunned. Eric charged forward and tackled him, punching hard. The griplock gloves held tight as he slammed his fist into the invisible warriors. Helmet Jarnak kicked him off and disappeared again. Blood ran down Eric's face. He knew one more hit might end the fight. He pulled a smoke capsule from his belt. Mela had given it to him last minute. He broke it open, and thick gray smoke filled the arena. Now Jarnak's stealth was useless. When Jarnak tried to strike again, Eric saw the movement in the smoke and threw a punch. He hit the side of the warrior's neck, then kicked his leg out. Jarnak fell to the ground. The announcer shouted, Winner Eric of Earth! The crowd roared. Even some Zellery warriors clapped. It wasn't luck this time. It was skill. Eric limped back to the chamber. His arms hurt, his side ached. Was still breathing? Mayla waited with a cold pack. You're full of surprises, she said. So is he, Eric replied, wincing as he sat down. They're going to get more aggressive now, she warned. You embarrassed a shadow warrior. Some nobles won't like that. Eric frowned. Why does it feel like I'm not just fighting for a crown?
Ella looks serious?
'Cause you're not. Layari didn't just give you a challenge. She gave the Empire a choice, and some people don't want it. What do you mean? She lowered her voice. Rumor is, the princess is supposed to marry General Korvik. He's old, powerful, and cruel. Layari hates him. Her challenge was a way out, but only if someone beats the best warriors. So I'm her last hope, Eric asked. Mayla nodded. Or her final excuse. That night, Eric sat alone and stared at the stars through. His small window, everything was happening so fast. He'd come for peace, not love, not war. But now he was in the middle of something bigger. Every fight was not just for honor, but for a future that could change to worlds. In the shadows. Far from the arena, a group of nobles met in secret. The human must not reach the finals. One growled, then we will make sure he doesn't. Another said plans were being made, traps were being set. And Eric had no idea how dangerous the next match would become, but he was ready, or at least he hoped he was. The arena was quiet the next morning, not because the tournament had stopped, but because something had changed. After 2 surprising wins, the crowd no longer saw Eric as just a weak human. Now they were watching him with serious eyes. Some cheered, some stayed silent. And some, especially the powerful nobles, began to grow angry, deep inside the palace. Princess Layari stood near a crystal window, her eyes fixed on the arena below. She had watched Eric's matches closely. Didn't fight with rage, fought with control, timing, and heart. That made him dangerous. A voice spoke behind her. It was General Korvik. The human must not win again, he said coldly. Lauer turned slowly. Are you afraid of him, General? Korvik grunted. I fear no one, but the Empire fears shame. If that human defeats our warriors, it will make us look weak. Maybe, Layari said, her voice calm. Or maybe it will show that strength is more than just muscle. Korvik's eyes narrowed. You made a mistake. This challenge, it won't protect you forever. Layari didn't answer. Instead, she walked away, leaving the general alone with his growing anger in the fighters' chambers. Eric sat at a metal table, cleaning his gloves. The bruises on his body were fading slowly. Mala entered with a serious look. They're changing. The rules for the next match, she said. What kind of changes? Eric asked. They're calling it a trial of skill now, she said. No weapons. Only bare hands and whatever tools you can build from a supply box. You get 10 minutes before the fight. Eric blinked. That's not a fight. A trap, yes, Mela said. I think they picked someone special for you. A noble son, trained since birth. He's not just strong, he's clever. Eric stood up and sighed. Then I better be clever too. Mala handed him a small device. This will help you see energy lines and tools. Use it to know which parts are useful. As Eric headed to the arena, she called out, Be careful. They're not just testing your strength, they're trying to break your spirit. Inside the arena, 2 boxes stood on opposite sides. The announcer explained the new rules. Build fast, then fight. No killing. Knockout only. Eric opened his. Box, wires, tubes, metal scraps, magnets. Nothing looked useful. He began to work, remembering his training as a technician before he became a soldier. He shaped a glove with an energy pulse. It's not strong, but enough to push an enemy back. He added small boosters on his boots for quick bursts of speed across the field. His opponent, a tall Zellery named Varand, had built arm guards and a chest shield. Varen looked confident. The timer ended. Crowd waited. The gong rang. The fight began. Varen charged fast. Eric dodged, then used his boot boosters to flip behind him. He punched with the pulse glove. pushing Varen back a few steps.
Grout.
Gasped. Viren growled and came again, faster and harder. His punches were heavy. One strike hit Eric in the ribs. Pain shot through his side. He stumbled, but stayed on his feet. He jumped back, catching his breath. He looked around and spotted a loose piece of panel from the arena wall. As Varen rushed again, Eric kicked the panel into his path, making him trip. Then Eric used both gloves and sent a double pulse, knocking Varen to the ground. Varen stood slowly, angry now. He charged again with wild power. This time, Eric rolled under him and used a last burst from his boots to jump high. He landed on Varen's shoulders and shocked him with both gloves. Varen collapsed. The arena froze. Then cheers broke out again. Some aliens were shouting his name now, Eric. Eric, human fighter. The announcer raised his hand. Winner Eric of Earth. Die. But in the royal box, the nobles were not clapping. General Korvik stood up and stormed out without a word back in the chamber. Eric sat with an ice pack on his ribs. You're hurt, Mela said, checking him. I'm always hurt, he said with a small laugh. But I'm alive. Varen's father won't forget this, she warned. You embarrassed his bloodline. Let him be angry, Eric said. I'm not here to play their game. Oh, I'm here because someone made a promise. At him for a moment, then nodded. I've seen warriors fight for gold, for power. But never like this. Like what? He asked, like they care about something real, she said. Later that night, Leari sent a quiet message through one of her personal guards. A hidden door opened in Eric's chamber. She stepped in, wearing a dark cloak. You shouldn't be here, Eric said, surprised. I had to see you, Leari said. Before the next match? You came all this way? Why? Because she said, walking closer, you need to know the truth. She explained everything about General Korvik, about her arranged future, about the growing tension in the Empire. The challenge had been her only way out. And you, she said softly, were my only chance. Eric stared at her. So you really meant it? Your words in the arena? Yes, Leari said. But now, they're trying to stop you. And me. Let them try, Eric replied. Leori touched his arm gently. Be careful, human. You fight not just for me, but for what comes after. Then she disappeared into the shadows, far away. In a secret hall, Korvik met with the rogue fighters. He's rising too fast, he growled. Next match, make it his last. Understood, the shadow leader said. We'll send the beast. Eric slept with one eye open that night. The storm was getting closer, but he wasn't afraid. He had something stronger than fear. He had purpose. The morning came with dark clouds over the arena. Though the skies above the Empire usually stayed clear, today felt different. The wind carried a strange chill, and even the cheering crowd seemed quieter. Something was coming, and everyone could feel it. Eric sat on a bench in the preparation room, wrapping bandages around his side. The bruises from the last match had turned dark purple. Pain throbbed with every breath, but he didn't complain. Each match had pushed him further, then the last. And now, the next battle was going to be worse. Mayla entered quickly, carrying a data pad and looking worried. They've changed your opponent again, she said. Again, Eric asked, already feeling tired. Double quotes. Yes. They said your original match was canceled for honor reasons, but that's a lie, she said. They're sending a beast this time, not a warrior. A half-controlled creature called Vernax. It was banned from fighting years ago. Eric narrowed his eyes. They're done playing fair, huh? They were never playing fair, Mela said, but now they're not even hiding it. What do we know about this thing? He asked. Strong, fast, almost no pain response, she said. It wears armor fused to its skin and obeys only one command, kill. Eric nodded. Slowly. Then I better find a way to not get killed. She handed him a small shock emitter. This can help stop it for a second. Not much, but maybe enough to survive. Thanks, he said. Keep saving me. Mela looked down for a moment. You're not like the others, Eric. You fight for something real. Just come back alive, okay? Eric gave her a small smile, then walked toward the arena gates. The arena was louder than ever. The crowd had gathered to see the match they'd Heard rumors about? Guards stood along the walls. Royal nobles sat higher up. And Princess Leari watched silently, her face calm but her hands clenched. The announcer's voice boomed across the field. Today's challenge, Jerk of Earth versus Vernax the Beast. A heavy gate opened. From the shadows came the creature. Vornax was huge, over 8 feet tall. His body was covered in metal plates, some bolted straight into his flesh. He had 4 burning eyes and claws like knives. The moment he stepped out, the ground shook. Eric took a deep breath. All right, just stay alive. The gong rang. Dordonax roared and charged, faster than anything that big should move. Eric barely rolled aside as a massive claw slammed into the ground where he had stood. Dust flew into the air. He ran in a wide circle, looking for an opening. He pulled out the shock emitter and waited. Vornax charged again. This time Eric pressed the button and aimed. The shock hit Vornax's side, causing sparks, but the creature only paused for a moment before roaring even louder. Great, Eric muttered. It made it angrier. Vornax swung his arms wildly. One claw grazed Eric's leg. Blood ran down, but he stayed on his feet, jumped onto a small ledge on the arena wall. Buying himself time, he noticed something. The armor plates had gaps near the joints. Not many, but enough. Gotcha, he whispered. Vornax jumped up, smashing the ledge. Eric fell, rolled, and pulled a magnet grenade from his belt. He only had one. Dove under Vornax's chest and slapped it onto the creature's back leg. Joint. Vornax turned and roared again. The grenade triggered. A strong magnetic pull yanked metal plates together, locking one of Vornax's knees. He stumbled. Eric took the chance and climbed the creature's back, slamming his pulse glove into the base of the skull. Again and again, Vornax thrashed wildly, slamming into the arena wall. Eric held tight. Finally, Vornax crashed to the ground. Dust settled. The arena was silent. Then came the voice. Winner Eric of Earth. This time, the cheer was louder than ever. Not just from the humans in the embassy box, but from Zalari civilians too. They'd seen something rare: bravery, intelligence, and survival. Loire stood in her royal seat. She didn't clap. She simply nodded. But Eric saw and knew what. It meant, back in the resting chamber, Eric collapsed on the bed. Mela rushed to him with medicine patches. You're insane, she said, sticking one onto his arm. Maybe, whispered, eyes closed. But I'm not dead. It's a good start, she said. A few minutes later, the door opened again. Not Mela, not a guard. Princess Leari stepped in. Eric tried to sit up, but she raised her hand. No need, she said gently. To talk, not as a princess, but as someone who owes you thanks. Eric looked at her. You don't owe me anything. I do, she said, sitting near him. You're still standing because of your will, not your weapons. And because of that, the Empire is watching. Some are afraid, others are. Hopeful. Hopeful for what? He asked. Change, she replied. For centuries, strength ruled. But today, they saw another kind of power: cleverness, courage, heart, things we forgot. They sat quietly for a moment. Then she looked at him. You still want to win me, human? Eric smiled. Didn't come here to win anyone. Came to keep peace. But now, I think the fight means more. It does, she said. And the next fight will be your last before the final. Who's next? A noble champion, she said. But the real danger isn't him. It's what happens after. She stood. Rest, Eric. They won't stop trying to break you. He nodded. Let them try. The shadows of the Empire Hall. General Korvik spoke with the other nobles. He must fall, Korvik said. I will face him myself in the final if he lives that long. And if he wins, one noble asked. He won't, Korvik growled. I'll make sure of it. They all agreed. The game had changed. The Empire was waking up, and the human was still standing. The sun was hidden behind thick clouds as the second-to-last match was announced. There was no cheering yet. The crowd had started to wait before reacting. They wanted to see what the human would do first. Eric had become more than a fighter. He was now a symbol. To some, he was a joke that wouldn't go away. To others, He was a hope they didn't know they needed. Eric stood quietly near the arena gate, wrapping a fresh bandage around his arm. Bruises, cuts, and burns covered him now, but his eyes were sharp. His body was tired, but his mind stayed. Clear Mela arrived, holding a new piece of gear she had built overnight. "A gift," she said, handing him a wrist strap with 2 buttons. The left button throws a smoke burst. The right one activates a short burst of gravity pull. It only lasts a few seconds, but it might help. Eric smiled. "You don't sleep, do you?" She smirked. "Not while you keep fighting monsters." They both paused when a new name was spoken by the announcer. Today's match, Eric of Earth versus High Champion Trelav of House Zarin. The crowd reacted fast this time. Loud cheers filled the arena. Trelav was no beast. He was royal blood. A favorite of the nobles, trained in 10 forms of combat and famous for never losing. Mala's face turned pale. "They're not hiding their moves anymore. I want you broken in front of everyone." Eric nodded. "And I better not fall." Trelav stood at the center of the arena, wore golden armor and a calm smile. His weapon was a double-bladed staff with a pulsing energy core. When Eric stepped into the sand, Trelav gave a polite nod. "I was told to crush you," Trelav said, in a smooth voice, "but I'd rather see what you can do first." "That's kind of you," Eric said. "I promise not to disappoint." The gong rang Trey. La moved fast, spinning his staff in wide circles. Eric jumped back, letting the blade pass just inches from his chest. Sand flew as Trelav's weapon hit the ground with force. Eric tossed his smoke burst and vanished into the gray cloud. Trelav didn't panic. He moved slowly, calmly. Eric reappeared behind him and tried a low kick, but Trelav blocked it without turning. He countered with a fast elbow to Eric's side. Pain shot through him. Eric stumbled. The crowd cheered. Eric activated the gravity pull. Trelav was pulled forward for a moment, off balance. Eric used the opening to punch his chest plate, then his leg, then hit the energy core of the staff with a pulse strike. The weapon sparked. Trelav jumped back, now alert. His smile was gone. "Clever," he said. "You are not just lucky." They fought again, faster, sharper. Eric dodged more than he attacked, watching, learning. Trelav used wide attacks to tire him out. Eric began to breathe harder, his legs heavy, his shoulders slow. Then Trelav came with a heavy swing that slammed into Eric's wrist. The gravity strap broke. Eric fell back, dazed. The announcer watched closely, ready to call the match. But Eric didn't give up. He rolled to the side and grabbed a piece of broken stone. He hurled it at Trelav's head. Trelav blocked, but the moment of distraction was enough. Eric tackled him, both falling to the ground. They wrestled in the sand. Fists, knees, elbows both landing hard strikes. Finally, Eric locked his legs around Trelav's arm and yanked it backward. "At!" Trelav shouted in pain. His weapon dropped. Eric rolled off and grabbed the staff. Sparked again, half broken. Trelav stood, holding his arm. He was breathing fast. "Finish it," he growled. Eric looked at the crowd, looked at Laeri, looked at Trelav. Then he threw the weapon aside. "No," Eric said. "You're already beaten, and I don't fight to humiliate." Silence filled the arena. Then came the announcer's voice. "Winner Eric of Earth." This time, the cheers were mixed with something new respect. Even Trelav stood tall, then gave a small bow. "You are worthy," he said, "and the Empire will remember this." Back in the resting quarters, Mela rushed to Eric and hugged him tightly. "You're bleeding again," she said, pulling back to look at his face. "You scared me." "Scared myself," he admitted. A few minutes later, a guard entered. "The princess wishes to see you." Eric followed the guard through secret halls until he reached a quiet garden behind the palace. Laori stood beside a glowing tree, her eyes soft. "You made history today," she said. "I'm just trying to survive," he replied. "You've done more than that. You've made even the nobles pause. They won't say it out loud, but they see it. Strength can look different. You've shown them that." Eric stepped closer. The final fight. It's with General Korvik, isn't it? Layari nodded, requested it. Personally, and the Emperor agreed. Figures, Eric muttered. He's not just a fighter, Layari said. He's angry and afraid of what you represent. I'll give him a good reason to fear, Eric said with a calm voice. Lowry reached out and took his hand. No matter what happens tomorrow, she said. No, this I believe in you. They stood in silence under the glowing light meanwhile. General Korvik stood before a wall of weapons in his private chamber. He picked a heavy blade and a black shield. Then he turned to his guard. No more tricks, Korvik said. I will end him with my own hands. What if he wins? The guard asked. Korvek growled. Then we all lose. Outside. The storm clouds began to gather. The final match was coming, and the fate of more than one heart hung in the balance. The final day had arrived. The arena was full before sunrise. Thousands of aliens filled the stands. Some waved house flags, others held glowing signs. Everyone had come to see the last fight between the human outsider and the Empire's strongest. Warrior. This was no longer just about a tournament. It had become something bigger. Eric stood alone in the center of the arena. His armor was cracked, his ribs still sore, and his arms heavy from the matches before. But his eyes were steady. He had made it through every test, every trap, every plan to break him. Now only one fight remained, above on the royal platform. Princess Layori sat beside her father. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched tight. She knew what this fight truly meant. If Eric won, she would be free. If he lost, she would belong to General Korve. The announcer stepped forward. Final match, Eric of Earth versus General Korvik of the Zelari High Command. The crowd erupted in cheers, gasps, and roars. Then Korvik stepped into the arena. His armor was dark and heavy, with golden edges. His shield was shaped like a claw, and his sword pulsed with red energy. He walked like a mountain slow, powerful, unshaken. Eric nodded once. You're really going through with this? Korvik's voice was cold. Should never have. Come, human. You broke rules. You humiliated nobles. And now you try to take what does not belong to you. She doesn't belong to anyone, Eric replied. Korvik's eyes narrowed. After today she will. The gong rang. The battle began. Korvek moved faster than expected, swinging his blade in wide, crushing arcs. Eric dodged, barely avoiding a blow that split the ground where he had stood. Dust filled the air. Eric rolled, came up behind him, and hit with a pulse strike. Korvik blocked it with his shield and slammed it into Eric's chest. The hit sent him flying backward. The crowd gasped. Eric coughed, struggling to stand. Blood touched his lip. Korvik charged again. This time, Eric sidestepped and threw sand into Korvik's face. The general roared in anger. Eric moved low and aimed a punch at his side no weak spot. Korvik's armor was solid. They traded blows. Korvik used strength. Eric used speed and timing. Still, Korvik's power was overwhelming. He pinned Eric down and raised his sword. This ends now, Korvik growled. But Eric grabbed a broken spear tip from the ground and jammed it between the plates in Korvik's leg armor. The general shouted in pain and stumbled back. Eric stood, again, breath ragged. I'm not here because of luck, he said. I'm still standing because I choose to be. Korvik roared and charged again. The fight became wild. Shield slams, knee strikes, quick dodges. Eric began using every trick he'd learned. He baited Korvik into wide swings, then countered with strikes to his joints. The crowd began to chant Eric. Eric. Even the nobles were silent now. Finally, after a long exchange, Eric ducked low, rolled under Korvik's sword, and used a small shock core hidden in his glove. He jammed it into the back of Korvik's armor, where Malah had told him a weak power seal might be. The core activated. A burst of blue energy exploded, sending Korvik flying. His armor cracked. His shield fell. His blade sparked and shut down. Keorvik tried to stand, but his leg gave out. Eric stepped forward, blood running down his arm. End it, someone shouted. Finish him, others yelled. But Eric lowered his fists. I didn't come to destroy your empire, he said, loud enough for all to hear. I came to protect peace. I came because I believe even your strongest warrior should know when to stop fighting. He turned to the royal platform. I'm done. The arena went silent. The emperor stood. Then the announcer's voice rang out. The winner, Eric of Earth? Cheers erupted. Not just polite claps, but wild, honest cheers. The emperor raised his hand. This tournament is complete, and by the words of our own princess, the victor now holds the right of royal bond. Layari stood slowly, eyes shining. She walked down the royal steps and crossed the arena floor. Korvek stayed on the ground. His pride broken. Yar. I stood in front of Eric and spoke clearly. You did not just win me. You won something greater, or future. She took his hand, and the crowd cheered louder. That night, a celebration lit the skies of the empire. Fireworks exploded in color. Music filled the streets. Even former doubters began to smile when speaking the human's name. In the palace garden, Eric sat beside Layer and Mela. Soft lights glowed around them. Double quotes, I still can't believe it, Eric said. This started as a peace mission, and it became a story, Layari said. A story they will tell for generations. What happens next? He asked. Lawaya smiled. We built something new, not through fear, but through choice. Mela raised a drink. To the human who turned a challenge into change. Clinked cups, and somewhere far away. Others in the galaxy began to whisper about Earth. Not as the weak ones, not as the newcomers, but as the ones who stood, fought, and won with heart.